Hey guys, VideoJames, and today we're going to be taking a look at what I feel are the top 5 most hardcore Transformers. And apologies that this video is getting out late in advance. I already know this video is going to get out late because I'm recording it way later than I should have. If I knew I was going to record this video, which I probably should have, then I would have gotten the photos way earlier and I would have been able to make this a whole lot sooner, but we're getting to it now, so that's all that matters. Try that again. This is going to be my top 5 ranking of the most hardcore Transformers from the film series, but I'm going to be using basically every aspect of every character that's in the film series that I'm including in this video. So we're going to start off this video with, it's going to go 1 to 5, 1 being highest, and we're starting off this video with possibly the most hardcore Transformer ever, just because he is an absolute tool. Starscream. Starscream, we all know Starscream. Starscream's the freaking Decepticon usurper. The genius behind the Decepticons. But for those of you who don't know, Starscream is basically Megatron's right-hand man who seeks to basically gain control of the Decepticons and everything in the universe while at the same time destroying Megatron and the Autobots. So, he's kind of on neither side. He's kind of on his own side almost 90% of the time. But still, Starscream is extremely hardcore, and it's for that very reason that he is one of the most hardcore. That his disloyalty to everything makes him do the most brash and hardcore things I've ever seen in my life. That Starscream will even kill himself multiple times over just to get what he wants. And Starscream may be smart and deceptive, which is basically the definition of a Decepticon, but he is also a military expert. This Starscream has so much firepower on him that he could even, I dare to say, level Cybertron onto one side. Starscream is absolutely a master of weapons on the Decepticon side with his multiple rocket arm cannon and his machine guns, as well as his buzzsaw that we saw in Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. And although Starscream does have all of these qualities that would make for an excellently destructive con, he is an extremely massive coward. Starscream can't pick his tailpipe up off the ground to save his life. Starscream is a coward to almost anything when it comes to being around the enemy and being cornered, when it comes to facing Megatron and having done something wrong. Starscream cannot hold his tailpipe for 2 seconds. He will absolutely freak out and become scared at the slightest thing. And then moving on to number 2, you guys should have known he would have been on the list, Bumblebee. Bumblebee is, honestly, he and Starscream were tied for number 1 when I started making this video, but Starscream ended up winning in the end, so Bumblebee got shot in number 2. But Bumblebee is everyone's favorite Autobot. Just everyone loves Bumblebee. You can't not love him. I don't think I've actually met someone who said they didn't like him. But Bumblebee is basically the scout for the Autobots. He's basically Prime in training. And he's just the absolute best Autobot in my opinion. While he is a small Autobot, he does pack a massive punch when it comes to battle. That he pulls off some of the most powerful and at the same time brutal attacks that I've ever seen in Transformers history. That he will go so far as to rip out Ravage's spine, beat Rampage with it, break Rampage's arm, and then snap Rampage's back. So, he basically rips out the spine, well, not spines, but he basically rips the life out of whatever he fights and inflicts massive amounts of damage to his opponents. Bumblebee would honestly total anything if he were of higher stature and stronger muscle design. And while Bumblebee does have significant battle tactics, he also has the agility and the parkour to make up for it. That Bumblebee can pull off maneuvers from transforming mid-air to save a human and transforming back before hitting the ground, or using his feet to catch himself on an overpass and hang off of said overpass to shoot back at an enemy. That Bumblebee's parkour skills are, to quote, second to none, and he will literally never lose a fight because of this. And while Bumblebee is an extreme weakling, even when he does get knocked down, he gets immediately back up again, even when he's just shy of death. That we saw in Transformers 1. Bumblebee lost most of his arms and his legs, and he was still shooting from massive shoulder-mounted cannons, as well as the cannon on his right arm. And we saw in Transformers The Last Knight that Bumblebee had lost both an arm and a leg, and he was still keeping Prime at bay. That Bumblebee does not go down easy, and if he doesn't go down, you better hope you don't see his face again. And then moving on to number 3, we got the big bad himself, Megatron. Megatron is honestly the scariest Transformer of the series. That Megatron, while he is a brute, he has the kind of cunning mastermind to make up for just brute physical strength. And when I'm talking about Megatron, I'm going to be encompassing all versions of Megatron. So not just Michael Bay. So be prepared for that. But anyway, if you don't know who Megatron is, he's the savage, power-hungry Decepticon warlord who basically only cares about one thing, and that is his domination of the universe and his destruction of Optimus Prime. And Megatron is so power-hungry that he will literally throw his own troops off of a ship after an enemy if they are escaping with a certain item that they want. That if Megatron loses his keys off of a ship, he would throw off something that can't fly to go after said keys. And he does not take crap from anybody. Megatron definitely wants you to know that he's the one in charge. He is the one who commands everything, and you don't even get a chance to be commander. That we saw in Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, when he returned to wherever the Fallen and the Starscream were hanging out. He said, even in death there is no command but mine, before he proceeded to manhandle Megatron. Or, manhandle Starscream, what am I thinking? But he does not let anyone in the driver's seat for anything. Especially Sentinel. Because when someone tries to take his spot, they get the crap beat out of him. Sentinel got shot multiple times in the chest and then beat down to a pulp. And Megatron mainly did this to assert his dominance, but also to prove that he's the only one who gets to take out Prime. That Megatron will not only not let anyone else rule, but he will not let anyone destroy Prime but himself. That Megatron does not want Prime to die by any hand other than his own, otherwise he would feel that the entire victory would just be worthless. As we saw in Transformers 3, again, when he was beating up Sentinel because he was taking out Prime, he said, "Who would you be without me, Prime?" So he basically credits himself for making Optimus who he is, and he wants to be the one to take him down. However, behind all of this, Megatron actually cares. And this is not a downfall, actually. This makes him a little more hardcore, because not only is he doing what he does, but he does it with a passion. He does it for a reason. That we saw in Transformers, I think it was Transformers 3, we saw how emotional he got over Cybertron's return. And in Transformers 5, we saw Megatron get all emotional over the finding of Starscream's head in Yeager's old hideout. And it shows that underneath it all, Megatron does have a slight bit of caring in him, but overall, he's just a power-hungry mass murderer who wants nothing more than to rule the universe at his own means. Moving on to number 4, we have Lockdown. Lockdown is a very savage Decepticon, and not even a Decepticon at that. But if you don't know who Lockdown is, he's basically the exiled Transformer who is basically a bounty hunter at this point, who goes around hunting down his fellow kind for whoever can pay him the most. So basically just a bounty hunter in the textbook description. And Lockdown is a very formidable enemy. Lockdown is someone you don't want to mess with on a daily basis. And one of the reasons Lockdown is so hardcore is that not only does he not have an emotional attachment, which makes him basically not have a reason to not fight, but he makes it a point to kill anyone who sees his face. That anyone who manages to see Lockdown doesn't live to survive it. And honestly, that makes him very hardcore, for the fact that he doesn't want anyone to be able to spread word about him being the threat that he is, and he just wants to kill everybody who he's after. And it makes Lockdown a very dangerous adversary, that even people who just cross him or get in his way, he will immediately murder. And Lockdown not only gets a joy out of killing his opponents, but he gets a joy out of imprisoning his fellow Cybertronians. That we saw in Transformers 4, he had such an overjoy about him when he captured Optimus that he was basically smiling and laughing. That Lockdown really just wants to prove that he is the best. That even though he says that every species thinks they're the center of the universe, he's the one that's most guilty of this. However, when it comes to Lockdown's downfall, he's got a really large pride. That Lockdown's pride is about as big as his ship. That Lockdown's pride is usually what causes him to go down. That he can't let anything get the better of him. Anything that gets the better of him will instantly be his next target. Like we saw in, again, Transformers 4. We saw Lockdown going after Cade because Cade got in some shots on him, and he would not stop until Yeager had died. And even with Bumblebee, he didn't give a crap about Bumblebee because he only got like 2 shots in, while Yeager got in like 15. So he was more mad at Cade, and he wanted him to die. He could not let his pride show that he was assaulted by a human and losing. And then the final entry, I really hate to say this because of how it turned out in Transformers The Last Knight, but the final entry on this list is Nemesis Prime. Now, Nemesis Prime, if you don't know, in Transformers The Last Knight, spoilers right away, in Transformers The Last Knight, Nemesis Prime is basically Optimus Prime after he is taken over by Quintessa and used to recover the staff that is supposed to drain Unicron's energy and bring it into Cybertron. So, the reason Nemesis Prime is so low on this list, I know some of you are probably screaming at me, why isn't he higher? But the reason Nemesis Prime is so low on this list is because he's honestly only hardcore for the 5 minutes that he's in the film. That while Nemesis Prime does anything to just get the job done, going so far as to kill his own people and almost slaughter Bumblebee, that he is honestly just a textbook example of a bad villain. That while Nemesis Prime does manage to actually kill whoever he wants to, except for Bumblebee, and he does take out anyone who tries to get in his way, Nemesis does not really manage to get the job done that much. That he may be a very hardcore fighter, and he may be a very well-coordinated fighter, but when it comes to being a villain, he sucks. I mean, we saw in Transformers 5, all Bumblebee had to do was say 2 sentences, and Prime was back to normal. And that was probably the most disappointed I'd ever been at a Transformers film in my life. Revenge of the Fallen didn't even hit that bad. But, I mean, again, 2 sentences, and then he's just going back to being a big old softy. And he was a big old softy as Nemesis Prime, too, because we could all tell he was holding back against Bumblebee. He could have ripped Bumblebee in half, but he chose not to. I mean, why? Why would you not just let him kill whoever he wanted? But anyway, that is going to be it for this top 5 video. I really did have a hard time including Nemesis Prime in this. I'm honestly that disappointed with Transformers 5 that it makes it hard for me to include Nemesis Prime or Optimus anymore in pretty much anything. But anyway, if you guys had differing opinions on who you thought should be the top 5 most hardcore, let me know down in the comments. And if you guys like this video, you can slap the like button as always, and I will see you guys later.